For some of the new projects I'm working on, for most of my new projects I'm working on now these days, I actually switched away from Tailwind. I'm not using Tailwind in those projects anymore. Also not ChatCN, therefore. And there is a reason. And the reason is not that Tailwind is bad, of course. Quite the opposite. It's an amazing library. I want to be very clear about that. And I kind of also feel bad about making this video, this episode here, because only a few weeks ago, I talked about the huge financial problems Tailwind was facing back then. Now, since then, thankfully, things got way better. Many new sponsors jumped on board, and now I think they're in a much better situation financially. Because, of course, obviously, Tailwind is amazing, and there are people working with a lot of heart and energy on that project. And my point is not that it's bad, or I want to convince anybody not to use it. I mean, I'm just using this channel to share my thoughts, my opinions, and some insights into how I work. So I thought that might be interesting. So why am I not using Tailwind then, if I think it's amazing? Well, I gotta take a step back. A couple of years ago, before we had the AI revolution, or before AI got that good at coding, I used Tailwind like most people, I guess, most developers everywhere. For one main reason though, because it allowed me to iterate quickly on the code. You know, I never really used Figma or other tools like that. Also, of course, because I'm in the situation that I'm mostly working alone. And if I'm working alone on my projects, I don't really have to use those design tools. For me, it always was quicker to iterate on designs just from directly in the code. I could write code, and with Tailwind, since you have your classes inline in your DOM, in your JSX code, you could quickly update that code, update those styles, and try out different styles, try tweaking that margin. And that was just a very, very efficient flow. And that was the main reason for me, and maybe also for some other developers, why I was using Tailwind. I know for a decent amount of other developers, maybe the majority, another strong reason is that they just hate CSS. I know CSS is not popular amongst web developers, and I get why. It can seem very complex. There are hundreds and thousands of properties and values, and yeah, it can be daunting. Now, I will say though, modern CSS has come a long way. Many things are easier now than they were in the past. I mean, Flexbox is not new at all anymore, but it made a lot of things easier. And now think of Flexbox in other areas where deriving colors got way easier than it used to be. You have relative colors now in CSS. And by the way, on my Academine channel, I launched a couple of videos where I talk about modern browser and CSS features like colors and relative colors, or the container queries, which are also amazing for building dynamically resizable components that don't depend on the viewport, but on the space that's available to the component. So CSS has come a long way. Now, the thing is, you can use all these modern CSS features also with Tailwind, essentially, or most of them. But you can also write vanilla CSS, and you can do that even easier now with AI, of course, because even if you hate using CSS, knowing about certain features and their browser support can be enough. You can point AI at the features you wanted to use, at some docs, some MDN articles that explain those features, and AI can write the code for you. You might wonder why you would do that. Why not just use Tailwind? I mean, it has all these modern features too. For 1.5 reasons, I would say, at least for me. The less important reason is that Tailwind might not always support all of the latest features, and more importantly, AI certainly doesn't know about all Tailwind features. I mean, Tailwind has a lot of features, but AI doesn't use all of them. It always uses the same few classes, and often even an old class syntax, so you're missing out on certain features here. Now, the same can happen for you if you're using vanilla CSS, of course. If you don't tell the AI to use a certain feature, it just might not, but you can learn about the few most important CSS features you want to use and then tell AI to do so. But of course, I get the point. You could also do the same for Tailwind and just tell AI to use certain Tailwind features. It just might be easier to just name a couple of key CSS features than Tailwind classes. But again, that's not my main point. My main point is that I have always tried to reduce the amount of libraries I use in my projects. And the reason for that is twofold. For one, I create educational content, so I'm used to external or extra libraries being a bad thing, because if I create a course about React and in that course I also use Tailwind, if there is a breaking change in Tailwind, a lot of parts of my code or of my course suddenly start breaking when I get a lot of questions by students, even though the main topic, React, might not have changed. I get that this is a very niche problem that affects me, but not most websites though. But even if you're building a normal website, having as little third-party libraries in there as possible and reasonable is a good idea, I would argue. Now, I will also say that it's not a good idea to absolutely force every library out there. There is a good reason to use certain libraries. I mean, if you're building a website that has a rich text editor, using something like TipTap makes a lot of sense, I would say, because you can build your own editor. Now with AI, it's easier than ever to some degree, but you will also run into a lot of edge cases or problems you then have to solve yourself. With AI, sure, but also AI doesn't get everything right. You know that if you worked with it. So there are reasons to use third-party libraries. I'd just say that styling, as I explained, is something that is actually replaceable. Again, not saying that everybody should be doing it, but for me, that works quite well. And therefore, that is one library that I can get rid of because I don't mind reviewing the CSS code AI gives me and fixing CSS and styling problems with raw CSS when things go wrong, because of course things will go wrong at some point when using AI. But I don't mind that. If you absolutely hate looking at CSS code, that will not be an option for you, obviously. But for me, I therefore can get rid of the Tailwind library. I can get rid of ShadCN, for example, because I build my own components. And ShadCN, of course, is not a traditional library, but it does use Radix UI under the hood, a library which has a questionable maintenance status now, as far as I know. So there you then have the actual problem why I want to avoid libraries even when not talking about educational content, if it makes sense. Every library you add to your project can also become a liability if it stops being maintained. At that point, security issues might not get fixed anymore. Bugs might not get fixed anymore. Styling bugs, for example, with Tailwind. New features might not be added anymore. If there is a new CSS feature and Tailwind weren't maintained anymore, of course it is, but if it weren't maintained anymore, then you might never be able to use that feature. And I mean, we kind of were close with Tailwind. That video, which I created, where I talked about their problems, there is a post by the main Tailwind creator where he says if they can't figure out this financing problem, Tailwind might become abandonware. Maybe that was a bit drastic, maybe also done to get more attention. But nonetheless, one problem you always have with most third-party libraries is that they might not be maintained anymore in the future, depending on who's working on them in the first place. And that's why I personally like using vanilla CSS again. Also, and that's important here, because I always did so. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. I want all the best for Tailwind, and I'm still using it in many projects. It's not like that. I don't hate it. It's just one thing where I'm experimenting with not using it in some projects. And no matter if that's Tailwind for you or something totally different, I just would, and that was true before the AI era too, I would always consider twice before using a third-party library. There are many good reasons to use them. For example, better auth for authentication is amazing. I would definitely do that. But if there is a library you can replace, it might be worth a second look or thought, I guess.